Hello, boys and girls. Here we are on our second day of our Native American projects. I'll go straight into this and share my screen. And we're looking at where it says day 1 and 2. Um, you could combine part of this with one or save it all for day 2. I just didn't want it all to be too much on one day. So you first would have clicked on this lesson and watching this right now. And the second thing you will click on this and go to another website. That's a Wix website that I created all this information for you to go and search for your region. So before you do that, you need to pick a region to research. And we've not yet discussed what these regions are or what truly Native Americans are. So that's what we're going to first look at today. So I am going to attempt to switch over and open up something else, and hopefully you can see this. So yet to attempt to do a PowerPoint on here like this. So let's see if I've got this. Okay, hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing. So Native Americans were the people who lived in America before people from other countries came here. Like they came on the big ships across the ocean. These people were already living here. They did not have to cross over an ocean. Native Americans respected nature. They took care of the earth and only used what they needed. Native Americans used natural resources. Notice how natural resources are in a different color. Those are words we need to remember. They used the natural resources to meet their needs. Natural resources are things they find out in nature. You kind of hear nature and natural. Things that were already there out in the wild that they didn't create themselves or man made them. Some of those were things like trees, water, stones, and buffalo. Natural resources are things in nature that people can use. Native Americans lived in culture groups. We kind of sometimes call them regions. The people in a culture group have the same way of life. They do things the same way. A culture group is a group of people who lived in the same region or area. And here is another picture of that same map that we looked at on the first page. Native Americans lived in 7 different regions. Now this right here, the Inuit are in Alaska, the Northwest Coastal, this is like where the state of Washington and Oregon are. California Intermountain, that kind of gives you an idea where it's at because you have California, and California goes down on the coast like this. Southwest, this is like Arizona and part of Texas. Plains, that's where all the flat land is, kind of like where you have um, a lot of the states where they have a lot of tornadoes because it's so flat. Plains is like just big, giant open fields. Then they have some rolling hills. So those are the states that are there. Northeast woodlands, that's up like where New York, Massachusetts, all those are. And the southeast woodlands, North Carolina is about right in here where I'm kind of circling, and that includes that. You got Alabama, Mississippi, down here is Florida. That's where the southeast woodlands were located. Each region had different physical surroundings. Some regions had forests, like in this picture. Others were mostly desert. So how they lived and how they used natural resources were different because the surroundings were different. Still others had oceans nearby. Now each region had different natural resources. Each culture group used the natural resources in its region to meet its needs. So in this area, they had the woodlands, and over here, if they lived on this area, that's on the coast, because this was all ocean over here. Fish, woodlands, fish down here, and in the plains, they had buffalo. Down here, they had a lot of, it was the desert area, so they had a lot of stones or rock. And in the California Intermountain, they had a lot of berries and nuts. And then up here in the northwest, sorry, they had whale and a lot of wood, big giant trees there. And the Inuit had whales and snow and ice. So down here in Florida, would they use snow and ice down there? Because they didn't have that in their natural resource. But up here in Alaska, they did. So depending on where they live is what natural resources they used. Now, for this reason, Native American culture groups had different homes. And here's some pictures of different homes, depending on where they lived. Those who lived near deserts used clay or stones to build their homes. That's like this first one right here. Those who lived on the plains used buffalo skins to make their homes, and that's what this one right here is. Still others lived near forests, and they built their homes of wood, and that's an example of this right here. Those living in cold northern areas used ice, and this is what theirs looked like. Many Native American culture groups built their homes in villages or cities. Look at this. These are the remains of an ancient Anasazi cliff village. And they had, the only way they could get to them was using ladders to get up to those. And then I found out that sometimes they used made ropes and they went down from the top. Other culture groups like the Plains Indians were nomadic. Nomadic means they could not live in one place. They had to move around to follow the buffalo. So they had to have homes that they could put up real quick and take down real quick to follow the way the buffalo went. The physical surroundings of each region also affected how each culture group got its food. Whoops. Native Americans in the eastern woodlands were very lucky. That region had forests, lakes, and rivers, a nearby ocean, and a good climate. Climate is like how the weather is long term. These Native Americans could farm, hunt, and fish for food. There were no forests in the southwest region. The land was rocky and uneven. There were many mesas, or large rocks with flat tops, and that's what this is. It's a large rock. It's got a flat top on it. The Indians who lived in this region were farmers. They planted their crops on the top of mesas. So were they protected from other people when they were up here? Just think how hard it would be to climb up there. So if they're up there and working and doing their farm, it's going to be hard for someone to come from another tribe. They would fight a lot between the tribes or other peoples come and try to take their food. And this protected them that way. I thought that was a pretty smart idea, using that land around them. Native Americans in the California Intermountain region were known as gatherers. There were few natural resources in this region, and these Native Americans gathered acorns, seeds, and fruits. They also dug up plant roots to eat for food, so they gathered it together. Gather means to get it and bring it all in one place. So they would gather their food or harvest it from where it was growing out in the wild. Now, those from the northwest coast hunted sea animals in the Pacific Ocean. There were many salmon in the rivers for them to eat. That's a type of fish. And they also hunted animals in nearby forests. Now, as I'm reading about this, think about which region you'd like to learn more about. Now, buffalo were a natural resource in the plains region. The meat was used for food. The skins were used for shelters and clothing, and the bones used for tools. And remember at the beginning we said they didn't waste anything. They used all parts of the animal for all kinds of different things. The physical surroundings of the regions affected each culture group's way of life in other ways too. There was much clay in the Southwest, so Native Americans that lived in this region used the clay to make beautiful pottery. And the Northwest Coast region had many forests. The Native Americans in this region used wood from the forest to carve tall totem poles. And here's a picture of one right here. Whoops. The carvings on each totem pole told about a family's history. So each of these meant something of what happened in the family's history. It's like a story book, but it's a story pole, totem pole. There were many buffalo in the Plains region. Native Americans who lived in this region were hunters. The Plains Indians had special ceremonies before big hunts. They danced to the music of drums. They thought this would bring them good luck on the hunt. Native Americans in the California Intermountain region were expert basket weavers. They made beautiful baskets out of grasses and plants. Whoops, I hit the wrong button, sorry. Native Americans in Alaska, in order to hunt large prey like walruses and whales, the Inuit hunters would gather in a large group. They made use of all parts of the animals they killed on their hunts. That was the only way they could survive, is if they used the natural resources. And for them to have those, they had to have the animals that lived there. Physical surroundings affected how the Indians traveled too. All of them walked, but in the plains and Southwest, they got horses from Spanish explorers and they started riding those horses. Those that were in the eastern woodlands, like where we live here in North Carolina, the Northwest Coast, and the California Intermountain regions, used canoes because there was a lot of water, like rivers, lakes, and the ocean. The Inuits used canoes and dog sleds in the icy cold surroundings. Here we see an example of them with a dog sled. That wouldn't work in Florida either, would it? So they have to use where they're at and what they have to make it work. Now let's review what we know. Native Americans were the first Americans. They've lived here all along. They didn't come from somewhere else. Native Americans respected nature. Native Americans used natural resources. Native Americans lived in different regions. They had different homes. They got food in different ways. And the culture groups had different ways of life due to their different physical surroundings and natural resources. Okay, so now you know a little bit more about the Native Americans. Let's go back to the regions. So right here, you would click on this. Right before you do, you need to pick a region. Remember, California Intermountain region is going to be mine for me to show you how to do these things. So you have the Southeast, Plains, Northeast Woodland region, Northwest Coastal, Southwest, and the Inuit. And when you have got that picked out and have done what I'm going to show you right now about making your research sheet, you would click on this right here to go to this Wix website. But we got to make our research sheet first. So I'm going to stop share, and I need to go to my document camera. Now remember, I asked you to get a plain sheet of paper and a pencil. Okay, so on your plain piece of paper, you need to get it, and you have to look at it different ways. So look at what are your short sides and your long sides. You're going to take a short side and bring it over and fold it and make sure it meets on the corners and fold it on a line of symmetry where it's exactly the same on both sides, where the short side goes to the other short side. If you need to pause this, you can at any point to do it. Then when you've got it folded in half, then you're going to take that short side and fold it over to the other short side. Make sure the corners meet and increase where that fold is. Okay, again, anytime you need to pause this, you can. The next thing is you open it up and you can kind of see like a plus sign or it crosses over. So with your pencil, I'm going to use marker so it shows up really good. I need you to trace over where those lines are. So you make yourself 4 boxes and just do it on one side. We'll do something else on the other side. Okay. Now once you've got that, with your pencil, we need to label what we're going to look up and what you're going to research. You need to find some things about food for the region you're going to do, clothing, shelter, which is another way to say their home. And you have to write kind of small for this one because this is a pretty long word here. Interesting facts. What are some interesting facts you learned about this region? So get those things on there. If you need to pause this at any time, you can. And when you've got this done, then you can start playing the video again. So the next thing is to turn this over. Okay. And on the back side, you need to write region and underline it. Then about a little bit above where the fold is, write the word landforms. And then a little bit down here, but leave yourself room. You're going to write natural resources. Okay, when you have this done, you can play this again after a pause. Now we're going to go back, come back to me, so that I can share again on the computer. So now you need to look and see which region you want to look up. Okay, now remember California Intermountain region is mine as a model, so don't choose that one. Choose these top 6 up here. This one down here, that's why it's down below, so it's mine. And on your paper where you wrote region, you're going to write the name that you chose. So right now, look at it on the computer and write down what you chose. You need to pause this, you can. See, I chose California Intermountain, so I wrote the name of the region that I chose. You need to do that on your paper. Okay, now when you're ready, don't keep watching this. Make sure you have all this done on your paper before you keep going. Pause this until you've got this done on your paper. If you have it done, we'll continue on by, and now you're ready to click and go to the Wix website. And this takes you out of the Seesaw, and this goes to another website. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's showing it to you. I don't know if it is or not. I might do this just to be on the safe side. I'm going to go out of it and back into it again. Okay, I hope you're seeing this Wix website. And so when you go to each of these buttons, you'll notice they kind of change color. It lets you know that if you were to click on it, it'd take you to a different page on here. So I want to go to California Intermountain. And when I click on it, it takes me there, and it's got all kinds of information about the shelter, food, landforms, clothing, natural resources, and important people or interesting facts. Wow, sounds a lot like what's on this piece of paper here. So first thing you have here is food. So I'm going to go to the food section, and look, it's got deer, elk, bear, rabbits, and squirrels, marshes and lakes teeming with wild birds and fish and turtles, wild vegetables, delicious wild fruits, acorns, and other nuts, clams, mussels, abalones, crabs, and crayfish. Wow, that's a lot of information. Well, all you need to do is to choose 3 to 4 of those. So I'm going to think, I know that a lot of the Native Americans needed a large animal to make their clothing. So the biggest one I see there is deer. And I know that a lot of Native Americans made their clothing out of deer hide, and they also use the food. So I'm going to have that as one of my foods. So I'm going to put that on there. And so you see how I put a bullet? Bullet is a text feature you need to learn to use to show that you're going to a different one. You don't have to write in complete sentences. When you take notes, you don't have to have complete sentences. I'm going to do my next bullet. Now I'm going to say, well, I've got an animal that's got fur and they use the skin. How about fish? It says they used fish, and they get that a different way out of the water. So I'm going to put fish. Okay. And then I'm going to say, oh, how about wild vegetables and wild fruits, acorns? I think I'm going to say acorns. And maybe wild vegetables. I think that's kind of an interesting thing because I don't know much about wild vegetables. I know about ramps, which is wild onions. How many things have I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to stop. There's a whole lot more there, but I don't have to put it all. Choose 3 to 4 things. Okay? Think about the ones you think that are most important, would be most important. And I thought probably deer might be the most important. Well, I'm also going to think about maybe bear, because some of them lived where it got cold, and they used bear, the with the fur, the hide with the fur. It might keep them really warm. Oh, I might add it. I've got room. Bear might be important too, so I put that on there. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're going through here and reading each of these sections, finding where it is on your information page, and choosing 3 to 4 things to put on there. So right here, my next one on my paper is clothing. So I come down here and I read about clothing, and I try to write maybe 2 to 3 things, because it has a lot of it. Sometimes you have to put a little bit more than just one word. You may have to describe what it's like they wore pants made of, they wore a shirt made of. You need to explain. Don't just say shirt, pants. You need to tell what it was made from, what natural resource they used. Okay. Shelter. I'd write down here, right here, shelter. I'd find it and write it here. Interesting facts. Right here's interesting facts. Now on the back, you had landforms. Right here's landforms where I'd look for it. And then natural resources. It's got it all listed right here. Okay. 3 to 4 things. That's what you're doing on your research time. So I'm going to stop share, because now I want to go back to our seesaw. I have to stop share, and now I'm going to share. I have to get it open first before it's going to make sense to you. There we go. So after you've got that done, that's all you're doing on day 1 and day 2 is researching. I'm giving you 2 days to do that. And then tomorrow on day 3, you'll keep this paper. You'll need that all through this week. And I'm going to show you how you're going to take this information and put it on the slides for what you're going to share. Okay. So I hope you enjoy this. This is one of the most interesting projects that I've done in the past. It's different for doing it online than what I do in classroom, but all this is, you're going to find some interesting things about this, and I think you will enjoy it. All right. And if you have any troubles or any questions, let your teacher know. They'll help you. And if they need help, I'm right here to help either one of you. All right. Have a good day.